Well everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus and compare it against the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus and see which specific phone you should go and pick up, or even if the S23 Plus is worth buying over the standard S22 Plus. Now, I will definitely tell you, in my opinion, you can't really go wrong with still using an S22 Plus. In fact, even the S20 Plus is still a very, very good phone. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these devices, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, I want to preface this video by stating the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus is still a very good phone. The S23 Plus is more or less of a, incremental upgrade. So definitely not anything crazy, nothing we haven't seen before, but it's still a pretty cool phone nonetheless. Now on the outside, the S22 Plus has a 6.6-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and it's a 120Hz display, and it was a very, very good panel. I really do think Samsung just pretty much, just knocked it out of the park with the S22 Plus. It looks very good, very little bezel around the whole entire display. You have the hole punch display as well. So that was a very good thing Samsung did, and I've been saying this for a long, long time now, but Samsung makes some of the best panels I've ever seen. So that in and of itself is a very cool thing that phone has going for it. Now on the S23 Plus, it is again just a small little upgrade. So it is a little bit of, it's the same exact display, so 6.6 inches. It's still a dynamic AMOLED display, but the cool thing here is that for one, it's still 120Hz, which is great. It's also getting 1750 nits of peak brightness, just like the S22 Plus. So you're really keeping the same display, which is nice. I'm glad they didn't downscale it or anything like that. That would have been horrible, but it's still a very, very good display nonetheless. On the bottom, they both have USB Type-C ports. They both have SIM card eject tools, no SD cards on both these, but that's probably kind of expected as of this point. And that kind of covers it up on the bottom and on the front. On the back of this phone, this is where probably the biggest difference is, in my opinion. So the thing with the Samsung Galaxy S22s from last year, they had that little camera module that kind of protruded a little bit. And personally, I actually did like it. I did kind of like it where it kind of stemmed out and it looked really nice. Now Samsung has pretty much removed that, which I think is okay. So it's a flat back now. Now I have some thoughts on this. I think for one, it's trying to look more in line with, it's weird because they made their Samsung Galaxy A14, which is their budget phone, but that came out before this one, right? The A14 has the same kind of design as this one on the back. So every time I see the Samsung Galaxy S23s, I just kind of think to myself about the A14. So it's just been one of those things. It's not a big deal. It's just kind of actually more funny than anything else. But other than that, they both have very, very, very good backs. They're both frosted glass backs, which is nice. Like I said, the S22 Plus does, protrude a little bit on the camera, which I think is more of a feature, but regardless, still a very good phone on both these. They both have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. So some really good stuff there. And beyond that, that kind of covers it up for the most part. There's not a lot of else on the outside that they both don't already share. They both share pretty much the same type of capability with Samsung DeX and whatnot too. So both of these have very, very strong features from that standpoint. So from the outside, that kind of covers it up there. Now, in terms of the camera setup, we did kind of hit on it a little bit. Both these cameras are almost identically the same, at least in terms of I would say in terms of the hardware. So for one, they're both triple camera setups on the back with pretty much the same megapixel count. So nothing really changed there. They both have 8K capability, which is nice. On the front, you do get a 2 megapixel, boost up from the S22 Plus to the S23 Plus. So you have that 10 megapixel camera on the front of the S22 Plus, where now it's a 12 megapixel camera on the S23 Plus. Both can do 4K at 60, which is always great. So that's probably one thing to keep in mind there. Now, I will say Samsung spent a lot of time on stating how they improved the S23 Plus's camera, and I will tell you, even if they kept it the same as the S22 Plus, honestly, even if they kept it the same from the S21 Plus, this is still a very, very good camera. Samsung with the S22 Plus, they spent a lot of time talking how they teamed up with other app manufacturers like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, I think, in order to improve the camera quality and make sure they work better in those applications. Personally, I didn't really see that big of a difference at that time, and even now it's still not that big of a difference. But I will say they were improving the areas in which I was having the worst experience in. Now, Samsung didn't really mention anything remotely close to that, but I still think these applications do need to be a little bit more optimized, specifically for TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. But stepping outside of those applications for a second, I think Samsung has done a great job with that camera and that stock camera application. There are so many features built into that camera, it's not even funny. You can do pretty much everything you'd ever want inside of a phone on those cameras. And although maybe they don't work super nicely with, camera features outside of it, I think Samsung's done a great job on that camera. and it still gets a thumbs up for me for sure. Now with the S23 Plus, it does go through and it does improve the camera quality, quite a bit, I'm sure. But from everything that I've seen, even from my S22 to my S23, even my S21 to my S23, I'm not somebody who's using the camera every single second of the day, so I don't really notice those things. Even on my personal phone, I don't really see, I don't really use the camera that much. It's just been one of those things that's always kind of, been there for me personally, but I never really use it too often. So camera-wise, S23 Plus is great. The S22 Plus was already really good though. Now moving on to the software and the longevity of both these phones, this is where the Galaxy S23 Plus is clearly going to be the winner here. The S23 Plus, it is the newer phone. So because of that, you are going to be getting a phone that is going to be pretty much lasting in software a little bit longer. So that's been something that you kind of get when you spend more money on the latest phone. But it's not to say that the S22 Plus is going to be outdated by a large margin. That's not going to be the case. You are still going to be getting a very long supported phone on the S22 Plus. So much so, in fact, you can use that phone for years and years and years and still be perfectly fine. So personally for me, that's just been one massive, massive thing to keep in mind on that type of device. So in terms of the software and the longevity side, you're going to be getting very long supported phones on both. Yes, the S23 Plus is going to outlast the S22 Plus, but it's still going to be a very fast phone on the S, and still a very powerful phone that's going to last long on the S22 Plus. Which brings me straight into the performance side. And as I mentioned before, the S23 Plus, it does have a newer chipset. With the S22 Plus from last year, I know I feel like I'm switching all over the place. The S22 Plus had that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset inside with 8GB of RAM. The S23 Plus has that new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of it with 8GB of RAM as well. Now this is how I'm going to break down this specific, movement of what's going on with these chipsets. The big thing to keep in mind here is that Samsung last year with the 8 Gen 1, it was a big change in the chipset in my opinion. However, it wasn't as optimized for a lot of people, and it wasn't until I started doing a lot more gaming on my Samsung phones that I realized how not as optimized as that phone can be. Most of the time I'm on a charger, and with that Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset, it was fast, it was powerful, but it definitely wasn't as optimized, and it definitely was, I will say, kind of heating up the phone a little bit too much. And even the battery life was going down like crazy. So that was one thing that always kind of stood out to me in that example. But beyond that, it was still a very fast and powerful phone that I actually did like a lot. Now with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus, this is going to be a faster and a way more optimized phone in pretty much every single way you can think about it. This is going to be a phone that's going to be more powerful with that new Gen 2 chipset. It has the same amount of RAM, but you are getting one big thing, double the amount of base storage on both of these models. So whether you get the base model or the top tier model, you are getting twice the amount of storage on those models, which is a really big thing to keep in mind. So personally for me, when I look at that from this device, those are big things that I just kind of keep thinking about as to why this phone is still completely, still a big upgrade coming from the previous model. So, but from a performance side, you are still getting a very fast phone on the S22 Plus. But if you're doing a lot of heavy gaming, you're doing a lot of heavy emulation, there's not going to be a better phone probably this year other than the S23s and the S23 Ultra, to be honest. I think those phones are probably going to be top of the top. They're going to have a lot more capability than a lot of other phones. So, if you want the best powerful phone, that's probably the best way to go. Now, battery life wise, funny enough, you are actually getting a little bit of a bigger size battery on the S23 Plus, but it's so slight. It's a 200 milliamp hour increase, but that is beautiful. At least they are not going down in battery size like we've seen from a ton of manufacturers. So battery life, I'm just gonna say the S23 Plus has the better battery life. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is I definitely do think the Galaxy S23 Plus is the better phone here. I think you're going to be getting just a higher quality phone pretty much in every single way you can think about it. It's going to be more powerful. It's going to have, better battery life. It's going to be better camera. It's going to have everything you'd ever want. But I do think the better value per dollar is probably going to be something like the Galaxy S22 Plus. It's a cheaper phone. It's been out for over a year now, so you can get it for a really good price. And that might be the better way to go for some people out there. But beyond that, I do think that the S23 Plus very much worth the money. But the S22 Plus, if you can get it for less than $500, that is a very good price to pay for a phone of this caliber. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.